In this video, we'll discuss the properties of a rhombus and squares. So a rhombus is a parallelogram with all four sides congruent. So that means all four sides here we can see are equal to each other. That makes it a rhombus. And it's a parallelogram, meaning that the opposite sides are parallel to each other. So a rhombus has all the properties of a parallelogram that we've previously discussed, plus two additional characteristics described in the theorems below. So let's look at the diagonals of a rhombus. If a parallelogram is a rhombus, so if it's a rhombus, its diagonals are perpendicular. So you can see here, the diagonals are perpendicular. They intersect at a 90-degree angle. If a parallelogram is a rhombus, each diagonal bisects a pair of opposite angles. So our diagonals bisect our opposite angles. So these two angles are equal to each other. 3 would be equal to 4, 5 equal to 6, and 7 equal to 8. So let's take a quick look at how we would prove that. So if we're given that ABCD is a rhombus, we want to prove that AC is perpendicular to BD. So since it's a rhombus, what we first can say is AB and BC are equal to each other. And then we can say BP is equal to itself by our reflexive property. And then we can say, so since it's a parallelogram, and our diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other, that means here AP is going to equal PC. So by side, 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 these two triangles, this one, APB and CPB, are congruent to each other. So APB, this angle here, and CPB, this angle here, are going to be equal to each other because they're corresponding parts of congruent triangles. And they also form a linear pair, since we have a line here. If they're equal to each other and form a linear pair, so they add up to 180 and they're equal to each other, then they have to be right angles. So we've proven that if we have a rhombus, then our diagonals are perpendicular to each other. All right, so let's take a look at an example. It says the diagonals of rhombus FGHJ intersect at K. And we want to use the information to find each measure. So we have FJH is equal to 82, so this angle is equal to 82. And if this whole angle, if FJH is equal to 82, we know that if it's a rhombus, that this line, GJ, bisects. So 82 divided by 2 equals 41. So angle J equals 41. And our three angles added together are going to equal 180. We know that this one is 90 because it's a rhombus. And we just proved that a rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular or intersect at a 90-degree angle. So we can say angle J plus angle K plus angle H equals 180. And then if we just substitute, angle J we said is 41. So 41 plus 90 is angle K, and then plus angle KHJ. And I just called it H here since we're looking at this triangle. So plus H equals 180. So 180 minus 90 minus 41 to get these away from this side to get angle H by itself, which is KHJ right here. So 180 minus 90 minus 41 equals 49. So KHJ equals 49 degrees. Next we have if GH, so this part right here, and JH, this part right here, so we know if it's a rhombus, they're going to be equal to each other. So we can just go ahead and set the two equations equal to each other. X plus 9 equals 5x minus 2. And then we're just going to solve for x here. So let's subtract x on both sides. We'll add 2 on both sides. So we get rid of the 2's, x. We have 11 equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4. We get x equals 2.75. So now we'll talk about what a square is. So a square is also a parallelogram, but it has 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So we said that a parallelogram with 4 right angles is a rectangle, and a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides is a rhombus. So if a parallelogram is both a rectangle and a rhombus, then it's going to be a square. So if a rectangle and a rhombus had a baby, what we'd end up with is a square. So in the Venn diagram right here, let's look at the relationships among parallelograms, rhombi, rectangles, and a square. So parallelograms, we know the opposite sides are parallel. If all 4 angles are right angles, it's a rectangle. If all 4 sides are equal, it's a rhombi. And if it has all 4 right angles and 4 sides equal to each other, then it's going to be a square. And all the properties of parallelograms, rectangles, and rhombi apply to squares. So diagonals of a square bisect each other. Property of a parallelogram, they're congruent because it's a rectangle, and they're perpendicular because it's also a rhombus.